Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, October 17th regular meeting of the Novi Community School District Board of Education. We thank you for being here with us this evening, and I will ask my fellow board member, Mr. Mena, to do a roll call vote.
Trustee Cook? Here. Trustee Hood?
Here.
Trustee Mena here. Trustee Murphy?
Here.
Trustee Roney?
Here.
Trustee Ruskin?
Here.
Trustee Smith?
Here.
Terrific. We are all present this evening. If you would all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance with me. With us. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Terrific. Thank you. First thing we have is the approval of our agenda this evening. We do not have a need for any changes.
We do not.
Or closed sessions this evening, do we? Okay, so I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Support. It's been moved by Mr. Cook and supported by Mrs. Roney. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Motion carries 7-0. Next, we have our student board member report. I will turn to our student board member who's here this evening to introduce himself. Thank you.
I'm Preston Soy-Salmsack. I'm the 8th grade president at the Novi Middle School. I'm glad to be here and I thank my fellow classmates for nominating me. On November 5th, the 8th grade will be taking its biggest group ever to Washington, D.C. for our annual trip. 379 students and 32 staff members will be on 8 buses headed to our nation's capital for a 4-day adventure. Game Club is up and running at Novi Middle School. The first 2 meetings have been very successful with over 20 students attending each meeting. Novi Middle School Theater presents Sue Spear, Hamlet Hears a Who, and Sherlock Meets the Phantom on Friday, October 25th at 7:30 in the Novi Middle School auditorium. The 8th grade student council members went on a field trip to the high school on October 15th. They worked with the high school student council to learn about leadership and team building skills. Novi Middle School is continuing our Novi Power program aimed at eliminating bullying behaviors and cultivating a positive school community. While the program still includes class meetings and circles, students are participating more in community and team building activities. The fall choir concert is going to be held on Wednesday, October 30th at 7:30 in the middle school auditorium. Stop by if you can. Science fair information will be passed out next week to all interested students. The middle school fair will be held on January. Qualifying students will attend the regional SE FMD Science Fair in Detroit on March 10th. Our club has also started. There are 48 members who meet twice a month to share their love of art. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Just a quick question. Did you get to go over to the high school with the student council?
I did. It was fun. We got to meet David, who's the executive head of the student council.
Fantastic. Good use of you got out of school, I assume, to go over there and do that?
Yeah.
Right, but good use of your time. It looks like you guys are doing a lot of team building, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's fair.
Fantastic.
So Preston, are you headed to Washington, D.C. with the 8th graders?
I am on November 5th.
And what bus are you on?
I'm on bus 6.
Oh, I'm on bus 5.
I'm on bus 6. Yes. So I will see you on the bus. Yeah.
Days of adventure, I think you said.
Yes.
4 days of adventure. 4
days of adventure. It is. It's a fantastic trip. We'll all be tired coming home, also. Just be prepared. So, well, thank you. Thank you for being here, for sharing about the middle school with us. It's good to hear that the clubs, I know they've revamped a lot of the clubs over there, so it's nice to hear about them and that they're doing well and that a lot of kids are participating. So, fantastic. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is our reports to the board. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. Tonight's report to the board is the 2018-19 financial audit, and I will turn to Ms. Minnick to introduce the audit this evening.
Good evening, thank you. We have with us tonight Chris Geck. He's the managing audit supervisor on our audit. He's been with our district for a number of years, and it's my pleasure to introduce him. He'll be reviewing the audit process and the financial outcomes of the 18-19 school year.
Thank you, Joe.
So it's another year in the books, as they say, in terms of closing out another fiscal year. So I'm happy to be here tonight to present the results of the audit of the fiscal year ended June 30, 2019. That includes the audit of both the financial statements and the federal programs. Ms. Laura Clays and I would have met with a full finance committee last Wednesday, and we covered the information that's in your packets tonight in a bit more detail. Tonight we have a presentation that we've prepared to kind of cover the highlights of that information with you. You should have 3 different packets. We're not going to be going through those in detail, but just to let you know what those packets are that you have in your board packets this evening. The financial report with supplemental information, that's the full set of financial statements for the district for the fiscal year ended June 30 of 2019. That's the thicker packet of the 3. The other report, which is the smaller of the 3, is the financial awards supplemental information. That includes all of the information regarding the federal programs that Novi receives grant dollars for. It includes information on the program that we audited and the results of that audit as well. The third packet is a report to the Board of Education. That includes 3 different sections. The first section is a follow-up to the pre-audit communication that you would have received before we started the audit that commenced in September. And that's letting you know how the audit went and that we did not have any significant issues in completing our procedures. The second section includes some comments and recommendations that we covered with the Finance Committee. And the third section includes informational items that includes things such as current and upcoming legislative updates, some information on state aid, and then also some potential and actual coming changes regarding accounting standard changes as well. So hopefully you find those pieces of information informative and useful. So with that, we'll cover the highlights with this presentation unless there's any other questions to begin with. All right. To give an overview, and this kind of covers a summary of the results that are in those packets of information that you have tonight, would be the results before we dive into the specific numbers. On the financial statement audit side of things, the district received an unmodified opinion, which is the highest form of assurance, which means that your financial statements are materially accurate and stated as presented in the financial report that you have with you this evening. We did not identify any material weaknesses in internal controls. Part of our audit, we have to also assess not just the numbers, but the processes and internal controls regarding preparing those numbers as well. And so we did not identify any material weaknesses that we had to report in regards to internal controls. We also found no compliance issues with laws or regulations, so clean opinion there as well. In terms of the federal programs, we found that the district was in compliance with federal regulations that included the special education cluster, which is the program that we tested for 2019. That's a pretty significant federal program for Novi. It's about half of your total grant dollars that you receive that are federal in total, so it's a very big program for Novi. District is a low-risk auditee, which means that the audits in the past have been clean, which has an impact on our assessment of risk and how we test for the current year as well. We did not have any federal findings or compliance issues, as I mentioned either, so both audits were clean audits. Getting a bit into the numbers now, the first several slides are going to be primarily on the general fund. The first slide here is comparing the results for 2019 compared to the final budget that the board would have adopted in June of 2019. So what you can see from this slide is that the actual revenue came in over budget by about $946,000, a variance of about 1.21%. Expenditures came in under budget, about $464,000, or a variance of about 0.59%. So in total, the change to fund balance was an increase this year of about $663,000, and that's compared to that estimate that was set in June. They thought there was going to be a change in fund balance of a decrease of $747,000. So it's pretty close budgeting when you look at those numbers in terms of those variances. On the next slide, we're going to focus just on the general fund revenue, so just over $79.2 million for 2019. Looking here on this slide, the different sources in which the general fund receives those revenue sources from. 60.8% is state funding. That's primarily through the foundation allowance that the district gets per student, as well as other categorical grants and things that come through on state aid. Local and other is primarily property taxes. That's about 37%. Then you can see the smallest slice of that pie, about 1.8%, would be federal dollars, so just over 1.4 million. These would be very similar to last year's breakdowns as well, if you look at the slide from last year in terms of how those resources are received. Next slide is looking at expenditures by the function code level. I think a good way to think about function code is department, if you will. So you can see from this slide here, the biggest piece of the graph is instruction and instructional support. If you look at those two combined, that would be 78.4% of total general fund revenue. So a very, expenditures, not revenue. A very significant portion of expenditures in the general fund are spent in those two areas, instructional and instructional support.
And the state determines how we place people in those categories, correct?
Yeah, all the categories that you see on this slide, administrative, athletics, those are all function codes which are prescribed by the MDE. So you can't make up your own function codes. How you place people, if it's a teacher, they're required to be coded as instruction. That all falls into line with state guidelines in terms of how that coding works. On the next slide, we're looking at a comparison of Novi compared to the other districts within Oakland County. This is based off of a document that is published by Oakland Schools, and these are numbers that are based on the most recent fiscal year where all the audits are made publicly available. So this is June 30 of 2018 information. Not all the 2019 audits have been published yet. And this is just to kind of compare those function code levels that we just discussed, where Novi would fall compared to how other districts in Oakland County spend their dollars across the same function codes. As you can see, the top line here, instructional, Novi would have had just over 66% of just the instruction category in terms of total general fund expenditures, and that would be above average, which is 61.39% for all of the districts in Oakland County for 2019. You can see instructional support is right about average, 11.95 compared to 11.98. And then the last three, which would be non-instructional type function codes, Novi would be below average in terms of spending dollars in those function codes compared to the rest in Oakland County.
Bravo.
I think this is an important slide for the board and for our district. It shows that we primarily direct our expenditures in the areas of instruction and instructional support, and that we try to maintain administration operations and non-instructional support at as low a level as possible to still get the job done. And so for me, this kind of reinforces our focus as a district is really on ensuring our instructional programs are as strong as possible.
It's always nice to see where we fall in line with other districts as well, and it's fantastic. So, bravo to us, I guess, to all of us for making sure that it's, that we stay aligned with that and that we pay attention to it. So, anyways.
Well, I think it is, it's a collaboration between the board and the administration to really, the board's focus is on instruction, so we try to really ensure that the dollars go to instruction. And so I think that's really an important function of the board to maintain that focus for us.
All right, great.
Moving on to the next slide is expenditures again of that just over $78.5 million for 2019, but this time looking at it from the object code view. So the same dollars we're talking about, but at different lens that we're looking through. I like to think of object code as how we're spending dollars within those departments, within the function codes. So if you can look at this slide here, you'll notice that just over 85% of total expenditures are spent in the area of salaries and benefits. So obviously a very, very significant portion of total expenditures in the general fund. While that's seems very large, and it is, that would definitely fall within the range of what you would see for a school district in the state of Michigan. Typically, you would see between 80 and 90% would be kind of a general range that we'd see in terms of salaries and benefits compared to total expenditures. The benefits would include things such as the MIPSR's contribution, so the state-run pension and retiree health care program. That's about 39% of every payroll dollar that districts contribute to that program, so that's a very significant benefit. That would include health care benefits, payroll taxes. Those would be some of the larger ones that are included within the benefits portion of that category.
And Chris, that 39% is not something we get to decide on. That's something that the state dictates.
Correct. Those are, ORS published rates. Districts are required to remit at those rates depending on what portions of the plan different employees are in.
Right.
Yep.
Can you speak to that capital outlay being 0.1%?
Yeah, so capital outlay in the general fund would be very small. because as we're going to see in another slide, the district does have the community support of a sinking fund, and then there's a 2017 capital projects fund as well that has allowed the district to be able to spend capital outlay in those funds versus relying on the general fund and keeping those dollars for those instruction categories that we just saw in the last slide. So that is why you would see capital outlay be so low in the general fund.
So if we didn't have those two other funds, this would look very different.
Correct. You'd be utilizing the general fund to maintain facilities, technology upgrades, things of that nature.
Yeah. Can you speak to purchase services a little bit? What's in that category?
Yeah, purchase services, that would be, and I'll let, Jill can probably actually chime in and give me a little better background there just to make sure I don't miss anything.
Of course. The primary dollars in purchase services goes toward our non-employed substitute personnel, so substitute teachers, substitute secretaries, those kinds of things. Also in the realm of purchase services would be certain repairs, equipment repairs, software maintenance agreements, internet fees, any types of communications, postage, certain types of waste removal. That's all I could think of.
Maintenance, yeah. Yep.
A lot of our professional development costs, registration fees, and associated costs would fall in there as well, which might be general fund state aid dollars, but it might also be a lot of our grant dollars would be in that component as well.
Is Environment Clean in that purchase?
Yes, it is. Mhm. Yes, thank you.
Right.
Next slide here is looking at the change in fund balance, the historical trend from 2012 through 2019. As you can see, there was a use of fund balance in 2012 through 2014 with some increases at varying levels between 2015 and 2019. The original adopted budget back in June of 2019 for this upcoming fiscal year 2020 is a current anticipated use of fund balance of just over $1.7 million. So that's based on that original adopted budget for 2020. So that would look at the change in fund balance, the last slide. This slide here now is looking at your total fund balance as a percent of expenditures, which is a common measure for various reasons, and comparing that ratio to the board goal of trying to maintain at least 10% of fund balance of expenditures as a measure that the board would like to see the district maintain. So if you look at this graph here, it does break out into two different pieces, the unassigned and then the total fund balance. You can see that the total fund balance was 15.73% as of June 30, 2019 compared to 2019 expenditures. But it's also important to focus on the unassigned fund balance as well, because included in your total fund balance is certain items that are already earmarked. And those are earmarked in accordance with accounting standards. They're not just made up amounts. One of the amounts that would be earmarked is that you're planning on, from your original budget, to use $1.7 million of fund balance for next year. So that comes out, and that's not part of your unassigned fund balance. You're not going to have it available for other expenditures because you're planning on using it to balance the budget next year. There's also certain things in the balance sheet, such as prepaids and inventory, where the district has purchased those items already. They're part of fund balance and your assets, so you don't have that fund balance available to use for other items. You've already purchased them. You're going to expend them next year when you use those assets, that inventory, the prepaid assets. So really what you're left with then is the unassigned fund balance, which is your available fund balance for those other things which are not already earmarked, already purchased. So if you look at it from that perspective, you'd have 11.74% of fund balance compared to expenditures.
Everybody good to move on from that? Anybody have questions? Okay, that's a good point of reference, because certainly looks like we're above our 10%, but the unassigned portion is we're pretty close.
Right, definitely important to keep in mind the categories of fund balance as well.
So what you're saying is the assigned things are things that we've already are in agreement to purchase, but we have to count them now because the snapshot of when you did the audit includes
Correct.
that money's still there.
Correct, yeah, that, and then also the fact that the current budget for next year, they plan on using some of that fund
Right.
balance.
Gotcha.
So earmarked, it's not available for other things, it's just available for use for next year to balance the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And then lastly, just a couple points of highlight. Again, to touch base and back on that capital outlay discussion, there was a significant amount of capital outlay expenditures in your financial statements this year and across the district. You just didn't see them in the general fund. So in total, there was $7.4 million of capital outlay, $7.3 million of which was broken up between the sinking fund and the capital projects fund that were both funds that are in existence because of the community support. And so again, allowed you to make those building improvements, have those technology upgrades, the things that are included and approved to spend the dollars on within those funds. So that was a very significant undertaking and a lot of investment, again, that was made in the district this year. And then lastly, comment on this slide is regards to the foundation allowance. So districts receive the bulk of their funding from the number of pupils that they have multiplied by the foundation allowance that's set per district. In 2012, that foundation allowance was cut $470 per pupil for all districts in the state of Michigan. If you look at what you're getting or what you got for 2019, that level was still $80 below what you had before that $470 cut per pupil. So still not fully restored from what you had in 2011. So if you take that $80 multiplied by the 6,721 blended pupil count that you had for 2019, had you still been funded at 2011 foundation allowance levels, the district would have had additional $538,000 in revenue. And that's just the 2019 impact. That's not including all of the reductions and impacts from the years prior to that as well, from 2012 through 2018. So very significant.
That's not even adjusted for inflation, correct?
Not adjusted for
So that's
inflation.
just a flat,
1 year
it's a flat
impact.
comparison.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, if I did a little math on that, so if we had maintained, if our funding per student had been maintained just at inflation, we would be at $10,044 per student, and that would be an additional $8.9 million annually. So that's just a snapshot of this year.
Yeah.
We would have an additional $8.9 million, but think about from the last, this is what, an 8-year window, all the money that we haven't had in our general fund.
We haven't realized it, yeah. Okay.
I think just lastly, we'd like to thank Ms. Jill Minnick, Ms. Deanna Wheeler, the entire finance team. It's a lot that goes into closing the fiscal year, preparing the reconciliations, getting ready for the audit, and also maintaining and keeping up with our requests as well while we're out here doing the audit. So everything was in good order when we came out. Everything was in great shape, and so we appreciate the district's hard work in preparing for the audit and having things as clean as they were.
Great. Other general questions for Chris? Yes? Seeing none? I know the finance committee, we grilled you pretty well.
Yep,
A
you
lot
did.
of good questions, and really appreciate the thorough work that you did on it and all the time that you took to explain additionally to us.
Absolutely.
Several of the things in there. The other finance committee.
No, thank you. I would say probably from Jill's office, thank you for your hard work with us, and appreciate the vote of confidence.
Yes. And Deanna as well, who
Yes.
really did a lot of work.
That's what I wanted to mention is the audit primarily rests on Deanna's shoulders and the entire business office. So I appreciate all the work that they put in, particularly after our finance director being out for a number of months. So extra effort involved for sure.
Yep.
So, but thank you, and
Yes.
Mike Moran is a pleasure to work with.
Mr. Smith?
I have just two, I think they're pretty easy questions.
Yeah.
So it really looks like there was only one recommendation after everything, and that was to monitor the super users of the access to vendors and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an area that you see in other school districts that can be compromised?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, we definitely focus on internal controls and not just the numbers. So depending on a district's systems, the number of people that they have in the finance office is just making sure that you have the duties allocated to the best of your ability. It's usually never going to be perfect,
Right.
but just making sure that the key areas that can be segregated are, and then also making sure that there's those checks and balances in place when they cannot be.
So that's something, Mrs. Minnick, that you would do is decide like which two people are gonna review the vendor reports or who's approved and all that stuff?
Certainly, and I believe this was also noted last year, and that is because we are still converting our accounting software throughout the county, and so new modules continue to be built and expanded, and so we do need a super user, and that is currently Deanna, in order to assign access for users of those different modules, but to be sure that one person doesn't have the ability to, for example, create a false vendor, create a false invoice, pay that, send it to a false bank account, etc. In order to preclude that, we do lock up our paper check stock, and that sole super user is never aware of where the access to that check stock is.
Sounds like
and
my
it is
office.
moved around frequently.
Sounds like my home.
But we do try to put controls in place so that that super user does not have access to all of those key events as Chris was speaking to.
Okay, because I think that's the only, I think last year there might have been 2 recommendations, and this is the only repeat.
Well, the other one was a note. It landed under the recommendations, and it was a note to bring to the board's attention that because Plant Marion Cressa is also our owner's representative, that we have a separate accounting firm come in and audit those construction-related transactions, so
Right.
that there's no misconception of or perceived
Conflict.
goings-on between
Right.
the auditor and the transactions. So.
Yep.
My last one's even more simple. On the government report, I forget what it's called.
Government-wide.
The federal.
Yeah, the federal awards,
Yeah.
supplemental information.
Yep.
There's an acronym for money that we get from the U.S. Department of Education, IDEA flow-through. What does that stand for?
Yeah, that's essentially the special education funding.
It's the Individuals
That's
with Disabilities Education.
Okay, because that's looks like the biggest chunk of money we get other than
Correct.
for the free and reduced lunch program.
Correct, yeah, and the way that we're required to test is in line with federal guidelines in terms of which programs are required to be tested by the auditor, and given the size of that program and the way that those calculations are required to be looked at, that's typically the program that we're required to review, just given its size.
So I don't know who this is a question for, maybe you, Dr. Weber, or Ms. Patel. My observation is that our district has an increased number of children with special education needs. Is that not correct?
No, that would be incorrect. We're actually down in our total numbers in the last 9 years.
Oh, okay, because I saw the number was reduced from last year to this year.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
And more of an uptick, and I think that could be attributed to that we have a very robust and appropriate 504,
Right,
Section 504 approach.
so because that's been increasing, the
Bolstered.
other number goes down.
Correct.
Okay, that's perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think 9 years ago, we didn't have a single 504.
We had 3.
We have 3?
Yeah,
Okay.
just
Wow.
ignored the law for 40 years.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And
Have
the
it fixed
proportion
now.
is also, because you have other grants that are maybe smaller compared to other districts, which that's why it makes special education look so high on your CFA. Just as for an example, other districts might have more students enrolled in free and reduced lunch, so that program might be much higher if you were to compare another district with maybe the same student count. So that would make those proportions just look different if you're comparing one district to the next.
All right, I'm sorry.
That's
Will you
okay.
say it again, Dr. Matthews? IDEA?
Individuals with Disabilities Education Act.
And I thought the free and reduced lunch programs were, I thought they were Title IX programs? No?
The free and reduced population drives some of the funding for other grants, so like IDEA for Title I, for Title III.
Because I saw there's like 4 titles.
Title IX is sports, equity in sports
Okay.
for girls and boys, but the title monies we have are separate from
Yes.
free and reduced lunch. It has to do with professional development as well.
Right.
You could probably speak to those.
Sure. So we receive Title I monies, and that typically is aimed at students needing a step up, a leg up in their education. But those factors in funding are identified both by federal dollars available, but other triggers like free and reduced eligibility and other at-risk factors. We have Title II Monies, Title IIA is for teacher professional development and improved programming. Title III is our language, English as a second language, limited English proficiency. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I think at one time we may have received Title V, but some of those have dried up now. So.
Perfect. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
As a follow-up to your question, Mr. Smith, 2014-15 students with disabilities, we had 553, and in 18-19 we had 439. So a decrease. We're about 6.5% in 18-19, and then 14-15 we're 8.6%. So about a 2% decrease.
That explains why we got less money. All right, thank you.
Any additional questions? No. All right, well, we do thank you for being with us this evening.
Thank you.
This is just a report, this isn't anything we take action on, but it is,
It will be something we take action on.
will be
It's
approved.
just a report.
So, not until we get a budget amendment, correct?
So the budget process is separate.
Right,
This is the annual
Right.
audit.
right, so we don't have to take a vote on this, so,
No.
just so you know, we won't be seeing this again, but if you do have other questions, feel free to send them Mrs. Minnick's way after you get a chance to really review them and more, reading them in the evening or whatever you're doing. All right.
Happy to answer any question you may have.
Great, thank you, and thanks for being here, we
Yes.
really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
And appreciate all the work you did on the audit.
And you can
Next-
stay for the board meeting if you'd like.
He's been here quite a
I'll
bit.
let you all enjoy it.
Thank you.
All right, next is an opportunity for comments from the audience related to agenda items. This is an opportunity for anybody in the audience to speak to the board on anything that is current on our agenda for this meeting. So if there's anyone that would like to speak to us about anything on the agenda, we do ask you fill out a green card, limit your comments to 5 minutes, and hand the green card to Mrs. Holly, who's in the burgundy in the back. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the board about our agenda? All right, we will move on to our consent items. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. Consent items this evening are approval of minutes of the meeting of October 3rd, and then approval of bills, the check register for August, and the purchase card report for June through July.
All right, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve consent items as presented?
I'll support. It's been moved by Mr. Mena and supported by Mrs. Roney. I don't believe we need any discussion on these items. I will call the question. All's in favor of approving the consent items as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next are our action items. The first item is our personnel report. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy, and I will turn to Dr. Kinzer for our relatively brief personnel report.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. Tonight we just have one recommendation. It is a new hire, Tamara Imara, Special Education Parapro at Parkview Elementary School.
All right, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education adopts the personnel report recommendations as presented this evening.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Smith and supported by Mr. Cook. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The opposed, same. Motion carries 7-0. Next is our merit pay plan for 2019-20. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. For the 2019-20 school year, the Novi Community School District Board of Education designates up to $250,000 in merit pay, with additional amount to cover FICA and retirement, to recognize the job performance and job accomplishments of its teachers and administrators that exceed expectations. This aligns with the state school Michigan compiled law 380.1250. Merit awards will be earned by teachers who earn national certifications and through staff efforts that lead to gains in student proficiency, student growth, English learner growth, and students with disability performance. And as you can see, this plan was presented to the board at our last meeting, and it was asked to do a couple of things before it came back to the board, and so we have done those. It's highlighted in yellow on the actual description. So the first is about prorating for employees during the school year. So employees who begin the first day of school, but before the end of the first quarter, November 1st, will be eligible for 100% of merit. Those who begin after November 1st, but before the end of the first semester, will be eligible for 75% of merit. And employees who begin after the end of the first semester will be eligible for 50% of merit. And then the second kind of change from the last report was that school social workers, psychologists, and speech and language pathologists who earn national certifications through their respective professional organizations will also be eligible for this merit award. This was added because school social workers, psychologists, and speech and language pathologists do not have national board certification through the organization that the other teachers do, and so this is a way to recognize their national certifications as well. And then a request was made, and this is brought to the board for consideration, that teachers who renew their national board certification will be recognized with a $2,500 merit award. The recertification process costs $1,250, which the teacher will pay. Upon verification of the teacher's recertification, the teacher will be awarded this additional merit award. Certification lasts 10 years for some teachers and 5 years for other teachers. And so this would recognize the effort that they put into getting recertified, which is still, it's not quite as arduous as the original certification, but it is not just paying your money and getting your certification. They actually have to reflect on their practice and submit information to the national board. And it's not an automatic renewal, but it's a renewal after they review that information that's presented. So those are the three changes that from the last time. And we would ask the board to support this as we move forward.
All right. I would entertain a motion first. Thank you, Mr.
That the Novi Community School Board of Ed approve the merit program for the 2019-20 as presented.
All right. All right, it's been moved by Mrs. Roney and supported by Dr. Ruskin. Is there any additional comments or questions about this, the merit pay plan?
I'm just glad we included other people in it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I like the idea of the recertification too, that you want to encourage teachers to maintain that. I think Brian Langley was telling that he has to do his, but sometimes it takes 2 years with all the information that they have to submit to them. So it's not like it's a slam dunk kind of process.
I did hear from a teacher at the high school who is a national board certified teacher, and she said this is an encouragement to staff to get national board certified. And she knows of at least 2 teachers at the high school who are going through the process right now. So it is encouraging staff to participate in the process. And it also is a way to recruit teachers because we can demonstrate to them that we will recognize the effort to become national board certified and also to get recertified, and it will be a way for them to earn additional compensation.
So if new teachers come to us that are national board certified, they would also be eligible for
They would
this
also be
award?
eligible, yes.
All right.
Can I add just that, especially for the categories that we've added, some of those social work, speech language, psychology, some of those are difficult positions to fill. So this is a really nice carrot to add as a tool to attract quality candidates in those areas.
Great. Fantastic. It's win-win.
I'd just like to thank the other members at the table that helped on the merit pay committee. I know, and I also recognize Ms. Burnside, who's in the audience tonight. She volunteered some of her time, along with a few other respected and tenured teachers, and I've had numerous conversations with multiple teachers, and even during curriculum night at the high school when I was walking through the different classes. And I can say that as somebody that maybe a couple of years ago might have had a different thought or opinion on how to approach this, I want to thank those that have helped me with my open mind develop a plan that I think is actually going to be reflective of what's in the best interest of our teachers and our kids ultimately. So, thanks, guys.
Terrific. All right, I will call the question.
Well, and if I can add, this is what I call a merit plan, right? This is what I, at least the majority of it, this is what I look for when I'm looking at a merit plan. I mean, you're literally rewarding folks to go above and beyond. And these certifications, I mean, as you said, trying to recruit teachers with these certifications and try to encourage teachers that we currently have to go up to these certifications is a win-win, as you mentioned, for this district. So I think it's great. And for the folks that did work on the merit plan, thank you, because I think it's a home run.
Yeah, and thanks to all the teachers early that came and really participated as well, which is, we always have a lot of teachers that want to come to an extra committee meeting on an evening, so it's great to have them there. All right, I will call the question. All those in favor of approving the merit pay plan report as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Motion carries 7-0. Next is our district goals report, Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. The superintendent and the Board of Education have met several times and thoroughly discussed the district goals. Tonight, these agreed upon district goals for the 2019-20 school year come before the board one final time for final approval. The goals outline the direction for the district for the remainder of the 2019-20 school year. The goals came before the board at the October 3rd meeting for information and discussion. They come back to the board for approval. So the recommendation is not listed there, but the recommendation would be to approve the district goals as presented. And these are, as we have discussed many times, aligned with our district improvement plan. There's 3 major goals that are aligned with the district improvement plan, and then 2 additional goals that really focus on what we consider to be areas needing some focus in the district. And so we would ask the board to approve these tonight so that we can emphasize these goals with our administrative staff and our teachers and staff throughout the district.
All right, I would entertain a motion. Thank you, Dr. Ruskin.
I would make a motion that, I'm making this off the top of my head, so hopefully it's good. That the Novi Community School District Board of Education approve the district goals as presented.
Support.
It was moved by Dr. Ruskin, supported by Mr. Smith. Without further comments or questions, I will call the question.
Just a comment, and
Certainly.
it's nice to see, these are great goals, and folks should know that we've vetted these quite a bit. I mean, we as a board, we spent a lot of time on these, and of course, administration was the one that initiated these. I think they're great goals, and what I especially appreciate for the most part, that they do line up each one of the sub goals all line up to the main goals, which we approved early this year. So that's much appreciated.
It's great to have that kind of alignment. Okay, without further comment, I will call the question. All those in favor of the district goals being adopted as presented, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Great. I think we got those in place a little earlier than last year, so we'll just keep working on that.
Chipping away.
Next is our winter tax levy. Dr. Matthews.
The most exciting motion this evening is our winter tax levy. You will see all of the levies that are proposed. The Novi Community School District levies half the taxes in the summer and half in the winter, and so this is to approve the winter tax levy. And so we would ask the board to approve the motion, the tax levy as listed above.
All right. I would entertain a motion. Thank you.
I move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education, in the best interest of the school district, authorize the winter or December 2019 tax levy as listed above.
Is there support? Support. Okay, it's been moved by Mrs. Hood and supported by Dr. Ruskin. I will say that this is a routine. It's every year we have to do this in late October, early November, in order to allow the city to put this out, and it allows us to divide our tax, at least the school taxes, up into 2 separate payments for our taxpayers,
Yes.
which is a very nice thing to be able to do. We're very
It is.
fortunate.
We're very fortunate. And so that you're aware, at the next board meeting, you will see the information on approving the summer 2020.
Okay, fantastic. More excitement. All right.
As we do every year.
Right, right. So all those in favor of the recommendation as presented, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries, opposed? Sorry, motion carries 7-0. Next is our administrative salary recommendation report. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. The administrative contract extensions of the listed administrators have been previously approved by the Board of Education. At the time of their approval, no administrative salary increases were made because the state budget was not finalized. With the state budget approved, it is recommended that the listed administrators receive a salary increase of 1.5% for the 2019-2020 school year. And you will see the administrators that are listed there. And so the recommendation is that all of these listed administrators receive a salary increase of 1.5% for the 2019-2020 school year.
All right. I would entertain a motion. Thank you, Mrs. Roney.
That the Novi Community School District Board of Ed approves a salary increase of 1.5% for the listed administrators for the 2019-2020 school year.
Thank you. Is there support?
I support.
Okay, it's been moved by Mrs. Roney and supported by Mrs. Hood. Is there discussion or comments on the board? Yes, Mr. Cook.
The dean of students in middle school, is it?
Angie Southworth, and we hired her with a contract, and so I don't believe that she would be part of this.
Correct.
Because she received her kind of compensation when she was approved for that position.
It's only a 1-year assignment, potentially renewable, but it's a 1-year assignment.
Right. Okay.
But if I can, we also had a few people who, because of some of the changes that we made recently as a result of a retirement, we did have some people that we changed positions. How does this increase affect them?
I think they're on here.
They're listed here, and so they would be eligible for the 1.5% increase.
They had previously been members of our NASA group, so I would think they would be eligible.
Okay. Any other additional questions? So there, obviously, to Mr. Metta's point, those changes were just made recently, and their salaries were commensurate with what last year's salaries would have been. Is that fair to say? I'm just.
Could you ask that question again?
Well, so when you structured those salaries to be different, correct? They were still consistent across the board with the administrators at that point in time, at that snapshot in time. I'm just trying to say, so the 1.5% additional that we're giving here is still consistent. That's what I'm.
So the positions are new.
Right.
So so they're really there's nothing to compare it to in 18-19.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is they weren't out of line with the other administrators' salaries given responsibilities. That's what I'm saying.
Correct.
So that's why you believe they should still be eligible for the additional. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Thank you. Okay, terrific. So it's been recommended and we've had support, so I will call the question. All those in favor of approving the salary increase for the listed administrators, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same. Motion carries 7-0. Next, we have a second opportunity for comments from the audience. It's another opportunity for anyone in our audience they're shaking their heads, so I think that's a no, but this is about anything in our jurisdiction. So anyone could approach the podium and speak to us about anything that is on their mind about something that is going on with our district or otherwise. And seeing no one rush the podium, we will move on to our superintendent's report. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. The new partnership between the Novi Community School District, the Novi Public Library, and Chartwell's is going very well. The cafe at the library is up and running and getting very positive reviews. The formal grand opening is this coming Wednesday morning, October 23rd at 8 a.m. And all of you have been invited to that. And if you are able to make it, we would encourage you to be there to celebrate this partnership. I've spoken both with the staff in the cafe and also with Ms. Farkas, and they're very pleased with the traffic that is being generated by the new partnership. The Novi Craft Show is Saturday, October 26th, and we would encourage everyone to attend and to buy things at the craft show. We have an administrative committee that has been thinking about start times at our schools. Research is clear that the early start times we have for adolescents are not beneficial for those adolescents. Our board policy 3008 states that the superintendent will develop and recommend for approval by the board a school day that is consistent with the board's policies on student learning and achievement. The school day will meet all applicable legal requirements. So in November, we will bring to the board ideas for consideration. We believe it is now an appropriate time to consider whether or not changes should be made to the start times of our schools, especially the start times of our middle and high school. Okay. And so we'll bring that conversation to the board in November and see where it leads.
Okay. Look forward to that.
And that's my report for this evening.
Perfect. Next to our administrative reports, Ms. Smith.
Thank you. Good evening. I just want to provide an update to the board on our Safe Routes to Schools work with the City of Novi. We had an update meeting today, and just to refresh your memory, the purpose of this federal grant is to provide funding for infrastructure repairs and improvements in order to enable safe routes to school. So it might include things like roadways and sidewalks and things like that. But it is the City of Novi's application, and we are working collaboratively with them because most of the work will be done on school property or because of schools and safe routes to our schools. But they did apply for that grant in late May, potentially early June, depending on when they have that final edition ready. After working extensively with Novi parents and students and staff with their input, and the grant application has gone through several levels of review, and today was another level of review with MDOT to review some modifications that may be needed and permits that may be taken out and things like that. So it's going to go back through for another level of review, and it is looking promising that the city will be awarded this federal grant and will be able to do some really great improvements. Of note would be installing a sidewalk or walkway from Taft Road up to Novi Woods. So if you were here for Walk to School Day, you may have noticed pedestrians and parents with strollers and bikers using our driveway to access Novi Woods. So that is a project we're looking forward to should the grant be approved, as well as several others across all of our campuses. So
Great.
I will keep you apprised.
Fantastic. Thank you. Dr. Kinzer.
Just a few updates. First, our Human Resource Certification Specialist class that we are hosting for 13 participants from other districts as well as 8 from Novi. We're 3 weeks into that 5-week class. The final 2 Fridays are next Friday, the 25th, and the following Friday, November 1st. At the conclusion, all of the participants will take a certification exam and then become certified human resource specialists. It's been a very positive experience for the participants. I've heard great feedback both from Novi staff members who are participating as well as people from other districts. Additionally, I was at the Novi Public Library on Monday evening for our second Mentee Monday of the year. Julie Farkas welcomed us and provided some information for our new staff members about services available for them at the Novi Public Library, as well as provided a tour of the iCube, which is really amazing. So we really appreciate all that Julie does to partner with us. Also like to thank a number of our mentors who joined their mentees at our Mentee Monday to work on student learning objectives and professional growth plans. And definitely thanks to Jeff Dinkelman, who was there to present as well. That's my report for the evening.
Improving instruction. Love it.
Yep. Good evening. So I'd like to
And
thank
Dr. Weber.
Our parent district mental health committee.
I know.
Matt Swartz came and spoke to about 125 of us around anxiety at the middle school. Did a really wonderful job in providing strategies and ideas on how we can help ourselves and our loved ones with that. And it's a wonderful group of community members who put that on. So I just want to say thank you for that. And we are up 2-0 over the Seaholm Maple Leafs, or the Leafs, or the Maples, or whatever they may be called. We have 2, they have none, which is good.
Fantastic. Great. Well, thank you for that. That's in the soccer game, correct?
Correct.
So thank you for the update. It's fantastic. Okay, next is our opportunity for board communications from any board members that have been out and about. I know there's a lot going on. So, Mr. Minna.
Yeah, I'll start off. I did go and visit the library on its opening Starbucks day because I'm a big fan. And so very impressive. I am so excited about the partnership we have there. We, having a cafe in the library was an early point of contention when I was on the library board many years ago. So the fact that it continues to run is really great, and I think it's great for the community. While I was there, I got a special tour of the makerspace at the library. And if you guys haven't seen this thing, it is incredible, man. The stuff that I was shocked, actually. It's all new since I left the board over there, and there is a lot of stuff that people could do there for free. There are a few a few of the machines there that consume supplies, so there is a small expense. But I'm telling you, I'm just amazed at the things you can do at a library nowadays. And of course, we're blessed here in Novi to have such a fantastic library to start with. So, the other thing that I want to say is just a quick shout out to our Novi band, who will be competing at the at Clarkston this weekend. And also congratulations to all of the folks who made Fanfare this past weekend successful. It was an absolute fantastic event. We had more bands there than I can remember. 19 was pretty big. We had a big crowd come through. We had weather. Couldn't ask for anything better, really. So that's it.
Terrific. Next.
I wanted to just add a little bit to the fanfare. So obviously we're a band family too, and so Mr. Dyroff is new, took Mark Corman's spot, and I think people weren't nervous, but people were like, And when our band was done, my husband said, that is the best I think I've ever seen Novi perform. They were amazing. And this is really early, pretty early in the season too. They're going to add to that, and you know, every year, all of these bands are so good, and here's my soapbox. These kids start with blank papers. They get their music, and they get dot books, and then they learn all of this over really a few weeks. Yeah. It's amazing. Anyway, they were wonderful and lucked out on weather, and it was good.
Can I add one more thing? I know I'm breaking the rules here, but I just want to remind folks, tomorrow is the big Novi Northville football game. I'm telling you, there is nothing in life that I love than spending Friday nights at a football game at Novi. Love it, love it, love it. And there's nothing like a Northville game. Of course, I get to sit in the warm press box.
Yeah.
But it is just a fantastic event. So if you have the opportunity to come out, it's just a great time. And we're kind of hoping that a certain item comes back to our school, the jug.
Brown jug.
So,
yeah,
There's a good chance.
that would be good. Okay, and Mrs. Hood has something to
I
add.
just wanted to add from Dr. Matthews' comments about later start times. So I had texted him earlier in the week to say, hey, California just signed a law that high schools in California won't start before 8:30. And I have talked to quite a few swimmers in the last month or so. And now swim season is exceptional, but I think it would get a lot of support to move our start time. Yeah. So
I'm
delighted
sure
that
8:30 might be a little.
I'm delighted that we're at least looking at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
That's one of the options, is an 8:30 start time for us.
Can't wait to talk about it. Okay, Mr. Smith.
Everyone has an invitation in a little envelope in your packet tonight to join the Novi Youth Assistants for their 62nd annual meeting. It's a breakfast meeting at the Novi Civic Center. And if anybody wants more information about the great work that they do, you can feel free to reach out to me. This is at 7:30 in the morning on Friday morning. It's pretty well attended. There's always a keynote speaker, which I think will be, it's usually interesting, but this year it's Dr. Weber, so
It'll be extra interesting.
we'll see. It's catered by Maria's, so the food is always excellent, but since I joined the NYA, I've got to learn a lot more about the great work that they do supporting our kids, and not just our kids, but really anybody in the district. And I would encourage all of you to join me that Friday morning, November 8th, for a little breakfast camaraderie and update on what they're doing. So that was that.
All right, other board members? Mr. Cook?
I'm gonna gripe. It's great going to Schoology, trying to minimize the apps, but I found out today I have to add another app to my phone. So for the IRA. Thank you, Mrs. Burnside. So, if we can get them down one spot, it would be great, but
Well, the kids have the clever piece, which is, so when the students go on their device, their iPad or their Chromebook, it's a single sign-on, so they can get into everything on that. So actually, we're putting our kids ahead of their parents. So.
All right. Other board members?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I was able to attend the mental health dialogue speaker. He was really fantastic, and it was great to see so many community members there. I also attended, Kristen Corian put on a screening of Intellectual Lives, or Intelligent Lives, I think it was called. It's actually airing on PBS or the World. I put it out there on Twitter, but it's actually going to be on the national TV where you can just watch it from home. Next week, I believe it's Tuesday at 8 p.m. It's a very interesting look at 3 just creative, beautiful kids and what they did with their lives after graduating from either high school or from adult transition program, and, you know, opportunities that you don't realize or know are out there, and just you never know what kids are going to do. So it was a great program. There was about 8 agencies there that were there to help parents and give guidance and feedback and just be a resource for that transition time for parents and kids with disabilities. So we appreciated her. The Novi Northville thing, you know, I'm a new high school parent, so I went to the volleyball competition, if you will, on Tuesday night, and there was hundreds of people there. They had their band going in the gym. There was so many Novi students there to support the Novi volleyball team, and so many Northville students, and Mrs. Carter was there, and it was just really cool to see. And I guess I didn't realize the rivalry. I knew about it, but it was,
You got to say it, and we won all 3 games.
and we won all 3 games. Thank you, Mr. Smith. But it was really just energetic, amazing competition between the 2 schools, and it was really great. And even if we would have lost, it still would have been amazing. But we won, so
It's always
it
better
was
when
great.
you win.
You know, and I hate to do this, I know, because I'm busting all sorts of rules, but about the rivalry, tomorrow night, we're going to be recognizing Brian Macy, who's the athletic director over in Northville.
Who's retiring.
Who is retiring after 30 years. So we decided, I think our athletic department decided that it would be nice to recognize him since he was coming here for the last rivalry game during his tenure. So that'll be happening tomorrow.
We are
disappoint
classy. We are classy.
Yeah, we are a classy. We are a classy group. Yeah.
All right.
I'll visit you in the press box.
Yes, Mrs. Roney.
And Dr. Weber, I'm gonna need your help on this, or Dr. Matthews. We have a mindfulness thing coming up. I think is at Woods. Is it this Monday or the following Monday?
This is 21st.
You got it.
This
I believe
Monday,
this
the
is my calendar.
21st, okay.
7 p.m.
I think that would be excellent for any parent that could go, because I'm excited about it. I'm going.
Good.
The little bit I saw of the teachers doing it, I thought, you know, I had to learn more about this.
Yeah, it's good for all of us to slow down a little bit. Don't say it. I already know where you're going with this.
Okay.
So my son did a video for the NEF about mindfulness, and the reason that Dr. Matthews is laughing, Jason Smith asked him, so when do you practice mindfulness at home? And he said, oh, well, my parents are annoying. Yeah, it's great material for my colleagues. So, but it's a great thing to go learn. Ian obviously needs a lot because of me.
Oh, that's probably more information than most of us need.
No, you'll
but-
all see it. I figure I want to get out ahead of it.
Okay, get ahead of it. I will just say real quickly.
Ms. Minnick has her hand up.
I'm sorry.
If I may, I just wanted to add on to 2 board member comments about the Novi Public Library cafe space. If you remember, our educational purpose in all this is so that our adult transitional students will have some work-based experience. And my understanding today after meeting with our director of food service, they are really enjoying it. She was able to show me some video and pictures, and they are really embracing it and getting a lot out of it. And in fact, we are also having a number of our high school students come over after school to put some time in there as well. So the patrons, the staff, Chartwells, everybody really benefits when our students are involved. So, and our students really are doing a great job.
Fantastic.
Great.
Such great news. On a different note, I went to a little dedication ceremony over at Village Oaks for Mr. Brown, his family, and Mr. Karnacki, who was also a principal in our district. They have a stone and a tree that they planted that are that our grounds people really helped them with. So I want to say it was lovely. If anybody gets a chance to get over there, it's right out front. It's an oak tree, Village Oaks. It makes sense. And there's a lovely stone with his name on it, or with his picture on it, with the most beautiful smile, which is how most people remember him. And it was just a really small, kind of intimate thing. I was privileged to go, and the teachers that some of them that were there and some of them that read things, just he was such a part of that community for so long, and has left such a legacy. So I would encourage you to stop by and see it, because it is really a very special thing. But really good, big shout out to Jim Fuller and Mike Dragoo, who really worked with Greg Karnacki. He just had such great things to say about our maintenance department and how well they worked with him to try and figure out the best spot, the kind of tree they should plant, and all of that. So really kudos to them. Band fanfare was fantastic. I think the last time I saw the band do at fanfare, I've been out of town a lot on that weekend, and they weren't finished with their with sorting through the performance, so it was kind of incomplete. But this one, I couldn't believe they didn't win. I thought they did better. I just want to say
They don't get to win. They don't get when you host.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And actually, they came in second for the scores. They were second to Plymouth Canton, which.
Well, I thought they did better than Plymouth Canton, but I don't know what those judges are looking for. It's kind of like figure skating. I don't know that either. But it was really was a fantastic. Just the talent. The talent is amazing.
The visuals are. I mean, we talk about the band, but it's performing arts.
Yeah.
It's the
color guard, the story that they tell. It really was fantastic.
Well, the other thing to remember is most of you haven't been in fifth grade band classes when they're playing hot cross buns, for weeks on end, and to see the transition from there to high school is incredible.
It too.
Yeah, it's just fantastic. So we are in DC for that breakfast, the Youth Assistance Breakfast.
I understand.
I do hope that some others
fly
will go.
back.
It's usually fantastic. I don't know if anybody else, Mrs. Roney mentioned there's something we've been invited to through NBC is doing a thing on in education in Detroit. It's on Thursday nights. I think you've got invitations in your emails. I know they keep coming up for me.
So today
is that-
NBC came in, so that's next Thursday at the Henry Ford. Did some work with NBC out of New York City in July. Carol Diglio will actually be on the committee talking about, or on one of the panels speaking about teacher shortage, but they also wanted to do a few vignettes from teachers. So thank you to Ms. Sawchuk, Deerfield first grade, Alex Erskine, art teacher, Jim Schneider, 7th grade ELA teacher, and Denise Gotham, math and computer science computers teacher at the middle school today. They were all interviewed by NBC, and those brief interviews will be present that night. So if you attend, you'll see many of the teachers that you all serve as well there.
Okay. So might be something to keep. We have a rare Thursday night off board meeting, so if there's no committee meetings, it might be something worth going to. And that, it's next Thursday. Or not next, 2 weeks.
Nope.
Oh, 24th. 24th. And then just putting a bug in people's ear. I know that social emotional, I was talking to we had a committee meeting beforehand, but just that at the annual conference this year, the keynote speaker's talking a lot about social emotional learning. I don't know if anybody's planning on going. If we don't have you're planning on going? Great. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look through the handbook either, because you will have to vote on the handbook. So I would suggest if anybody has concerns about the changes they're making, since Dr. Rustin is going, maybe shoot those her way so that she knows what the other board members are thinking about some of those changes that they're going to make. Thank you for going. I'm glad somebody's going to go, because I would really like to hear a report back. Obviously, we don't get in. If we're lucky, we'll get in at midnight, they say. But last year I was in at 5 in the morning, so.
Because of snow.
Was it snow?
Yeah, remember?
It was snow and traffic. We had a ton of traffic. Either way, thank you for showing up. And yeah, I will be interested to hear what they have to say about that, because obviously that's something we've been focusing on in our district as well. So fantastic. All right. If there is nothing further, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, 1 second. I'm sorry. I'm doing a little I'll be gone this weekend, so I won't be at the Novi thing. I'm going to DC, in advance. Do you think in
Oh, in
advance,
advance?
just
Oh,
to
good.
scope it out? No, I'm going for a family funeral, but I will be gone. So I'm really hoping that people will, maybe somebody will text me. I know you're busy, but if you're at the game, text me some updates.
Hey, you could just connect online and
Online,
watch
that's
it
right.
over your phone.
Novi
I
football?
can do that.
Novi football?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Okay, fantastic.
NoviAthletics.tv.
Plus, if you follow Mr. Meta on Twitter,
Yes.
regular school updates are.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we'll now entertain a motion to adjourn.
Okay, I move that we adjourn.
Support.
It's been moved by Mr. Menon, supported by Mr. Cook. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.